The Princess Bride fits into Dungeons & Dragons pretty perfectly, so naturally I've chosen to make a character based around someone in the franchise, the Dread Pirate Roberts. The main aspects of the character I wanted to focus on are his swashbuckling swordsman skills, as we see in the sword fight against Inigo Montoya, as well as his charismatic and clever nature, as we see in places like his deception with the poisoned wine. Wesley is a human, but the Dread Pirate could theoretically be any race, so pick whatever you want. As I'm building the Dread Pirate that we see in the film, I'm going to use human for this build, which gives us an increase to 2 ability scores, a skill, and a feat, which I will cover later on. As for levels, I have built the character to be level 6, and the first level is going to be put into Rogue. I mainly picked this as the starting class because it gives us the most starting skills, but we also get the features Sneak Attack, Thieves' Cant, and Expertise, which I will cover along with skills later in the video. Next, I put 3 levels into Fighter to help with the swashbuckling skills. This gives some helpful proficiencies, as well as a fighting style for which you should take Dueling, to give a bonus to attack damage when using a single one-handed weapon, such as a rapier. Then we get Second Wind and Action Surge, which help make us stronger in combat, and finally a Martial Archetype. Both Champion and Battlemaster fit well for the role, so pick whichever you want. I personally picked Champion because it's easier. I put the final 2 levels into Bard to get Jack of all trades, which allows us to add half of our proficiency bonus onto roles that we are not proficient in. We also gain Song of Rest and Bardic Inspiration, which are less relevant to the character, but always nice to have. If you want to take the character to higher levels, then I would suggest just putting them all into Fighter from here on out. I considered going with just Bard class using the College of Swords from Xenophar's Guide to Everything, but I think Fighter works better, although that would be a good option if you're going to keep the character below level 5. For starting equipment, we will be using the Rogue starting options, and the choices are pretty straightforward. First, we will take a rapier, then you can take a short bow if you want. If not, a short bow will be useful to have in case you get disarmed. Finally, a burglar's pack, and we also get some leather armour, 2 daggers, and some thieves' tools. As a bard, we gain some spells to work with, starting with 2 cantrips, for which I took Mending and Vicious Mockery, as well as 5 first level spells. I took Animal Friendship, Bane, Detect Magic, Disguise Self, and Heroism. Choosing the character's ability scores was surprisingly difficult, because in The Princess Bride, Wesley shows himself to be gifted in basically all of them. So because of this, I've only taken what's going to be useful for the build itself into account. Dexterity and Wisdom should be a priority for combat and skill usage, then Charisma and Intelligence for spells and more skills, and finally Strength and Constitution won't be as important. It's also worth mentioning that for the multiclassing that was done earlier, the character's Charisma needs to be above 13, as well as his Strength or his Dexterity, which can easily be done with Standard Array. There are a few background options that I think fit Wesley, like Folk Hero and Urchin. And if your character isn't Wesley, then their backstory can be anything at all, based on what they were doing before becoming the Dread Pirate. But for this character, I'm focusing on the pirate part, and selecting Sailor, which has a variant for pirates. The personality traits I went for are on screen, and for alignment, I would describe Wesley as chaotic good, although other Dread Pirates were probably more chaotic neutral, and possibly even chaotic evil. To try and cover the ability of the Dread Pirate, I've managed to give the character a lot of skills, as well as Jack of all trades to help cover those we don't have. First, we get Athletics and Perception from our background. Then, as a rogue, we gain 4 more skills, for which I took Acrobatics, Deception, Persuasion, and Sleight of Hand. Finally, we gain a skill from our Bard levels, and another from our human race, for which I took Insight and Survival. We also get to pick 2 of these skills to gain expertise in, for which I took Acrobatics and Deception. Now for feats, we gain 1 from our human race and 1 from ability score improvements. For these, I would definitely recommend Defensive Duelist to help with survivability. Then for the second choice, Savage Attacker and Observant are both good options. Which one of those you pick will depend on what you're focusing more on in terms of gameplay. For this build's homebrew ability, I've gone for a sense of anonymity. Your character has a completely separate identity when they are not wearing their mask. This means that any bad reputation that follows the Dread Pirate will not affect them when they don't have their mask on, and removing the mask may even be used more tactically, like to lose pursuers or something along those lines. In addition, I like the idea of this build spanning multiple characters, so I had the thought of being able to pass the mantle of Dread Pirate onto someone else that you might meet, giving you essentially a new character to play, but still keeping the same general aesthetic. That's everything for this character, thanks for watching. As always, there's a link in the description to the character sheet if you'd like to take a look.